Alright, how many of you know someone who's had the back of their bike seemingly rip itself apart at random, with the rear mech being yanked off and this part of the rear triangle just sort of shredding itself to bits for no apparent reason? Most of you have heard of it, and it may have even happened to you. So what causes it? Well, there's a few things that can happen, but the main thing that causes it is entirely preventable, and you can stop by just doing a real simple check on your bike, and then if you see the problem, you can just service it really quickly and it will never happen. To get to the point, the issue is with this part of the rear mech, the hanger, which tensions the lower part of the chain. Now this is a very good system when it works, but if you neglect it and you don't service it, it's very easy for this to get clogged up and this spring not to work properly. So the way the system works is, whenever you are in a large cog, this pulls forward. And when you drop into a smaller cog, this moves backwards to take up the slack. Now, if this spring doesn't work, when you drop into a smaller cog, the slack isn't taken up. So essentially the system will be slack. Now, pedaling when the system is slack is disastrous, because the chain can loop around on itself like this, which pulls everything together, pulls this forward, and then the chain will keep looping under itself, and that will just rip the whole system apart. So that is a pretty heavy thing to happen. If that does happen, the rear mech will rip off here. The force of your pedaling will shred the seat stay and the chain stay, pulling the carbon apart, and that's your entire frame just written off. Thousands and thousands of dollars just chucked away in a split second like that. But it's really simple to protect yourself against this. All you need to do is make sure that this part of the rear mech is kept serviced. So today we'll show you how to check it and then how to service it if it needs servicing. It's really easy, and it can prevent a really, really expensive disaster happening to your frame. So what's the check we do? Well, it takes 1 second. All you do is you grab your rear mech here, take your other hand, hold the hanger here, and just move it forward and back like this. It should feel completely smooth with no friction, no biting points, and no tension at all in the system. If you feel any kind of notching or it gets stuck anywhere, especially up here, you need to get the mech off your bike and service this, and that's what we'll show you now. Right, so you got your rear mech off. This is my Dura-Ace Di2 rear mech that I've crashed a few times, but still going good. So as we said, you've checked the spring in here, and it's giving you a little bit of roughness when you move it from here. Okay, this one's actually perfect. This is smooth, so it doesn't need to be serviced, but this is just for an example. This movement here needs to be absolutely smooth all the way around. Should be no little tight points, no little rough bits, nothing. If there are points where it sticks, or if you can hear a little sound or anything at all, that means that there's dirt in that system. Now this area of the bike gets really dirty, especially if you're riding in the rain. Even if you're not, it's attracting dust, you're putting grease on your bike, a lot of stuff can build up in here. So quite simply, all we're going to do is take this cage system off, make sure it's all working properly, put it back together. But there are a few things you need to be really careful of when you do this, so that it goes back together properly and you don't mess it up. I've tested this for you already by messing mine up, so you don't have to. Now the first thing to do is to get this outer side of the cage off. Really simple. You just undo the Allen key here, take that off, flip it over, undo the Allen key fitting here, and take that off, like so. Now, all of this stuff on yours, if you haven't taken it apart ever and you've just been riding it, is going to be ridiculously dirty. So clean all this up. These little things sit on the jockey wheels like this, so take them off, clean it all up. That might take you a while, depending on what you've been riding through and how little you clean your bike. It's going to be pretty grim around here, so get it all clean. Also clean around all your rear mech, get it nice. Don't use running water, but get it really clean. Use alcohol impregnated wet wipes or whatever. From there, we're going to focus on this part. Now, before you even think about taking this apart, you need to look here. Here, on this plate, you have 2 holes. Looking very closely, you'll see a little metal tab in one of the holes and not in the other hole. This end tab is part of the spring. Whatever hole it's in, you need to put it back in that hole. Don't put it in the other hole because your shifting will be all over the place and won't work properly. Okay, we'll go into why in a different video, but just trust me on this one. Whatever hole it's in is the hole it goes back in. Make a note of it. You could even get a black marker pen and put a little dot on the hole that it needs to go in. It's vital it goes back in the right one. Okay, do I make myself clear? Right. Once you've done that, once you can remember which hole it goes in, then it's time to start taking this thing apart. It's actually pretty simple to get open. All you do is you drop an Allen key down into this hole, undo it. Now there's a chance this thing's going to be pretty fucking tight. So you're going to have to get a bit of leverage on there. It undoes in the normal way. It's not, reverse thread or anything like that. So just go at it normally and then get it undone. Now it will probably feel really rough when you're undoing it. So just go easy, okay? Keep your hand on this to stop anything opening up as you undo it. And just slowly unscrew it all the way. Eventually, you'll start to see a gap opening here as the system undoes itself. When you start to see this gap, you've got to be really, really careful that things don't fly out. Okay, so just go really easy, hold the whole system together with your hands and just gently prise it open as you unscrew. Okay, so this is the system open. We've got the main part of the rear mech there and then the cage here. You can see this tightly wound spring here. This little plastic bit is the end cap seal part, which sits against here. And down here, you can see the two options for putting the spring in. Now, flipping this round, that is, whichever hole it's supposed to go in. So the next step is to take off this plastic seal, then take out the spring. You may need to push it from the other side with something if it's a bit tight. It's going to be pretty grim in here, so brace yourself. Here, this part is the bit that causes all the problems. Okay, this is what you need to clean up. Now, this is going to need a little bit of explaining. This part, and this part are all separate items. Okay, this part, and this part are all separate. In a healthy system, this should turn very freely. There shouldn't be any sticking there, any notching, any roughness at all. If your system is very tight to turn, or if you can't turn it at all, you've really got to open this up and clean it out. I would suggest opening it up and cleaning it out regardless of how easy it is to turn anyway, just so you know how to do it and just so you're absolutely sure it's clean. Now, how do we do it? Well, this part here, this little ring, just slides over the threads and sits down. You can just slowly pull it off with your fingers or, get a little screwdriver or something in there and pull it all the way down. However, if your system is really tight and doesn't move at all, you're going to have to turn this over, put something hollow under here, like something like a tube, bit of cut off carbon or something, and then you're going to have to deliver some blows onto the top of this to knock the system through. Now, the first time I took mine apart, when I was having this problem, this was incredibly tight to the point where I almost didn't believe that it was, separate parts, but it is. So you've got to knock this through. When you get this out, you'll see all manner of mayhem in there, kind of black ground on dirt that looks like, black rust. This material, I believe, is stainless steel, so it shouldn't be rusting. Any gunk you see in there, you should be able to get it off. Okay, so I'm going to open this up now so you can see. Okay, you can see my desk starting to get more and more dirty now as we get deeper into the system. This here is the main part. You can see, even on my one that I've cleaned recently, it's covered in black stuff, right? This is all the sort of sooty stuff that comes off the road and sits in your drivetrain, which is why you should be cleaning your bike a lot and not with running water. We need to clean all this off. This lock ring came off fairly easily. I had to knock it a few times. Down in here as well, you'll need to inspect to see if there's any sort of rusty stuff, any grime caught in there. So basically, yeah, you need to get all this cleaned up, okay? Use alcohol impregnated tissues first, and then use a degreaser, okay? Once you've done that, put a light film of grease around here, nothing too heavy,
because this is a highly moving part. So a light grease would be better than a thick assembly grease. And then you're going to put this back through like this, and then push this end cap on, which, you know, takes a bit of going, okay, a bit of pushing, and then that's the system back together. From there, we're going to put it back together into the rear mech system itself, and show you how it all goes together with the spring. All right, so that's all clean now. I've cleaned down in here. You can see the difference in the material now. That's what it should look like. If you haven't taken yours apart and it was difficult to get open, there's a very high chance that there'll be stuff sort of almost impregnated onto it, sort of sealed onto it like black gunk. You might need to get some fine grit sandpaper and just sort of smooth it off if it's really stuck on. I had to do the same on mine. You can see some slightly shinier parts where I had to clean mine off. That shouldn't affect the performance as long as you don't sand too much off, of course. And this part I cleaned down in the inside, because that's where this sits and turns round. Okay. So the next step is to put some grease on there, get it back in, put this washer on, okay, and then we'll get the system back together. Okay, I've greased this up now. This end cap has a little recessed part on the inside that goes on this way. Okay, so make sure you get it on the right way around before you start hammering it down. To get it back on, you've got to sort of push it with your fingers. It takes a bit of going. There you go. All right, so that's in place now. Next, remember where we had the end of the spring. On my mech, it was this hole here. Okay, so we're going to put this on like this. Then the seal goes on with the thin part to the top. That's the complete unit. Lightly grease the spring, just in case it slightly touches the cylinder during operation. Now we need to get that back into there. This also needs a bit of pre-knowledge. Looking down inside here, you can see maybe a little hole here. This end piece of the spring needs to go in there, in that hole. So you've got to line it up. Once you've got it in position, drop your Allen key down and just very gently do it up. Now be really, really, really fucking careful not to cross thread anything, okay? If you feel even the slightest little bit of tension in the thread, stop, undo it, start again. Don't cross thread this, you'll fuck up your entire mech, all right? You can't retrieve that. Okay, so that's getting there now. Now, at this point, you'll notice this little stop here. This stop needs to be behind this bit here. So what we do, we undo slightly once we've got it in position, okay, until we can just get this over the stop, okay, and that adds tension to the unit. Then we go down again, and that's in position. There we go, beautiful. Then we just go a bit tighter on it. There we go, and that should be fine. From there, we get the jockey wheels and this outer cage back in position, and then get it back on the bike. Job done. Afterthought then, for something that is so potentially utterly destroying to your bike, there's not a lot of information online about servicing this area, and Shimano or any other mech manufacturer never mentions it. I really, really think they should, because this getting stuck and then your chain losing all tension and then the chain turning over on itself and just tightening the whole system together until it shreds itself off is going to completely ruin your bike. Your frame will be just gone, irreparable. And it's so preventable as well, just by doing this quick bit of servicing to keep this smooth. So keep on top of this, keep checking it, and just, service it when you need, okay? Because it will save you literally thousands and thousands of dollars. All right, so there you go.